Listen closely. Do you hear that? The sound of 1,000 men walking backwards through their own lives, searching for the moment they first mistook imprisonment for embrace. It sounds like wedding bells played in reverse, a death knell masquerading as celebration. There's an old Romanian folktale about a prince who fell in love with his own reflection in a cursed mirror. Each kiss he planted on the glass drew more of his soul into the reflection, until one morning, the servants found only the mirror, breathing softly, while the prince had become the shadow watching from within. Modern psychologists call this projection. The ancients called it damnation. Both were optimists. In 2024, researchers at the Institute for Relationship Dynamics discovered something delicious in its horror. Men who describe their partners as completing them show 47% higher cortisol levels, the stress hormone that literally ages you from within. Your body knows what your mind refuses to admit. Completion is amputation by another name. You weren't incomplete before her. You were whole in your beautiful imperfection, like a Japanese bowl repaired with gold, each crack a testament to survival rather than damage. But here, in this cathedral built from dying roses, we genuflect before the altar of our own diminishment. The petals fall like snow in July, each one a piece of yourself you traded for the privilege of her occasional smile. The air is thick with funeral perfume, that cloying sweetness of flowers just beginning to rot, like love 3 years into marriage, when the performance becomes too exhausting to maintain and both actors forget their lines. Kierkegaard wrote that the most painful state of being is remembering the future, particularly one you'll never have. But I tell you something worse. It's living inside someone else's future, while your own withers like fruit left too long in shadow. You've become a ghost haunting your own life. And she's the medium who claims to speak for you, but only hears what confirms her seance. I once watched a man at a cafe in Prague, 60 years old, maybe more, sitting across from his wife of 4 decades. She spoke for 47 minutes straight, I counted, while he sat there, occasionally nodding, his eyes focused on something 1,000 yards beyond the wall behind her. When the waiter asked for his order, she answered for him. "He'll have the fish," she said. The man was allergic to fish. He ate it anyway. This is love institutionalized, not a feeling anymore, but a bureaucracy of the heart, where you need permission slips to feel your own emotions. The grotesque comedy is this. We call it settling down, as if stillness were the goal, as if the point of being alive were to find the perfect spot to decay. Like those Victorian photographs of the dead posed as if sleeping, we arrange ourselves in positions of false peace while rigor mortis sets in. The mortgage, the joint accounts, the synchronized Google calendars, each shared convenience another bar in the cage you're building together, mistaking the echo of your combined breathing for harmony when it's really just the sound of 2 people slowly suffocating in the same room. Here's what Schopenhauer understood that Instagram couples don't. Loneliness isn't the absence of another. It's the presence of someone who makes you forget who you were before they renamed you. It's sitting at dinner with someone who knows your coffee order, but not your dreams, who can predict your complaints, but not your potential. The deepest loneliness happens in company, when you're performing intimacy rather than experiencing it, when "I love you" becomes punctuation rather than declaration. The cathedral bells are ringing now, but backwards, each toll erasing rather than marking time. The roses continue dying, their thorns the only honest things left. At least they admit they're designed to draw blood. And you? You sit in the pew of your own funeral, listening to eulogies for the man you could have been, delivered by the woman who helped you kill him with kindness. Tell me, When did you first realize that the person lying next to you was actually lying to you by lying next to you? When did proximity become your prison? She loves you like a spider loves the fly, tenderly until dinner time. Shh, lean in closer. I want to whisper something your therapist would charge you $300 to never say. Her love isn't nourishment. It's taxidermy. She's not preserving you. She's posing you, arranging your limbs into shapes that please her eye while your authentic self rots beneath the shellac of her expectations. There's a story from medieval France about a countess who kept her lovers in golden cages, feeding them honeyed figs and wine through the bars. They grew fat and beautiful and utterly useless, their muscles atrophying until they couldn't leave, even when she opened the doors. The modern version doesn't need cages. Just conditional approval dispensed like morphine drips. Just enough to keep you docile, but never enough to make you whole. Picture this. A man standing in his bathroom at 3 a.m. staring at his reflection in the medicine cabinet mirror. The fluorescent light flickers like a dying moth's wing, casting shadows that make him look hollow, excavated. He's 42 years old and cannot remember the last decision he made without calculating her reaction first. Even his thoughts have developed a censorship board, a little committee in his skull that reviews each idea for potential disappointment. The toothpaste tastes like chalk and compromise. A 2025 study from the Copenhagen Institute of Behavioral Psychology found something beautifully horrific. Men in relationships where they describe feeling deeply understood by their partners actually show decreased activity in the brain regions associated with self-reflection and autonomous decision-making. Translation: she understands you so well that you've stopped understanding yourself. Her comprehension has become your prison. Why explore your own depths when she's already mapped them for you, labeled them, filed them away in categories you never chose? The velvet noose tightens so slowly, you mistake it for an embrace. First, it's just suggestions. That shirt doesn't really suit you. Then it's your friends. I don't think Marcus is good for you. And then your hobbies become our hobbies. Your time becomes our time. Until the word I feels foreign in your mouth, like speaking a dead language you once knew but can no longer pronounce correctly. Nietzsche called it the will to power, but in relationships, it's more subtle. Call it the will to reshape. She doesn't want to destroy you. Destruction is too obvious, too masculine. She wants to edit you, like a manuscript with too many rough edges, too many uncomfortable truths. Each criticism is for your own good. Each boundary she crosses is because she cares so much. The velvet feels soft against your throat until you try to turn your head and realize you can't. I knew a sculptor once in Berlin who fell in love with a banker. Within 2 years, he'd traded his studio for a proper job, his wild hair for a sensible cut, his late nights creating for early mornings commuting. She displayed his old sculptures in their apartment, like trophies of a war she'd won against his former self. "He's so much happier now," she'd tell guests, while he stood beside her, smiling the smile of a man who's forgotten what his real face looks like. The cosmic joke? She genuinely believes she's helping. In her mind, she's polishing a diamond, not realizing she's turning it into glass, clear, practical, and utterly without fire. Her love is a renovation project where you're both the house and the contractor she's fired. Every improvement takes you further from the blueprint of who you were meant to be. Here's what the love songs don't tell you. Being chosen by someone isn't always a blessing. Sometimes it's a curse disguised as selection, like being picked for a team whose game you never wanted to play. You wear the uniform, the clothes she approves of, follow the rules, the boundaries she's established, and score points, meet her expectations. all while the crowd cheers for a performance of yourself rather than your actual presence. The velvet noose has a beautiful pattern. Look closely. It's woven from every yes you said when you meant no, every smile you forced when you wanted to scream, every dream you postponed indefinitely because it didn't fit the life she'd imagined for you both. The pattern is so intricate, so detailed, you could almost admire it if it weren't slowly cutting off your air supply. So here's my question, whispered like a curse or a blessing, depending on your courage. What would you do tomorrow if her opinion of you suddenly ceased to matter? Don't answer out loud. She might hear you thinking. Where your dreams go to be preserved behind glass, perfectly maintained and utterly untouchable, a bitter laugh echoes through empty hallways. Welcome, welcome to the grand exhibition of your compromises. Admission was your spine, but don't worry. You won't miss it here where everything stands perfectly still. The lighting is soft, institutional, the kind that makes everything look valuable and dead simultaneously, like those butterflies pinned to boards in natural history museums, their wings spread in eternal flight toward nowhere. Let me tell you about the Japanese concept of mokusatsu, to kill with silence. Not the dramatic murder of confrontation, but the slow assassination of indifference. She doesn't need to destroy your dreams, she just needs to not see them. They wither in the absence of witness like plants in a closet, reaching desperately toward a light that never comes. That's nice, honey, she says, scrolling through her phone while you describe the business you want to start, the book you want to write, the mountain you want to climb. Your ambitions become ambient noise, background music to her more pressing concerns about throw pillows and vacation spots her sister recommended. In this museum, your college dreams sit in the first display case, slightly yellowed like old newspaper clippings. Remember when you were going to revolutionize something? The details have grown fuzzy, but the feeling remains. That electric certainty that you were meant for something more than quarterly reports and reasonable expectations. Now those dreams are behind protective glass, climate-controlled to prevent further deterioration. Visitors, dinner party guests, occasionally comment on them. You wanted to be a musician? How interesting. The past tense cuts deeper than any blade. A 2024 Harvard study on what they delicately called aspirational decay found that men in long-term relationships experience a 73% reduction in what researchers termed radical life choices, career pivots, creative pursuits, geographical moves. But here's the part that should chill your bones. The men reported being satisfied with this reduction. Satisfaction, the morphine of the middle-aged, the participation trophy of existence. You're satisfied the way a lobster is satisfied in slowly warming water. Walk further into the museum. Here's the wing dedicated to the women you didn't pursue, each one a door you didn't open, a story you didn't write. That barista with the unusual laugh who quoted Bukowski. The colleague who invited you to that underground jazz club you never went to. The stranger on the train reading the same book who looked up just as you looked away. They're not fantasies of what could have been. They're reminders that you chose safety over possibility, that you valued the sure thing over the magnificent maybe. But the most grotesque exhibit is in the basement, hidden behind a door marked staff only. It's the collection of who you were becoming before you met her. The man who was learning Russian just because it sounded like winter. The one who was saving money to disappear into South America for 6 months. The version of you who ate dinner at 11 p.m. because you were too absorbed in creating something to notice the time. That man is preserved here. A wax figure so lifelike you could swear you see him breathing. But when you reach out to touch him, your hand meets cold glass. She curates this museum with unconscious precision. Remember when you wanted to learn the saxophone? She laughs at parties, and everyone laughs with her, not realizing they're laughing at a funeral. She's made your unfulfilled desires into conversation pieces, little curiosities to display her patience with your former foolishness. He's so much more mature now, she tells her friends, mistaking resignation for growth, confusing the absence of dreams with the presence of wisdom. The museum has a gift shop, of course. You can buy replicas of your abandoned ambitions, smaller, safer versions. Instead of writing a novel, you have a blog no one reads. Instead of traveling the Silk Road, you have a screensaver of Samarkand. Instead of learning to tango in Buenos Aires, you occasionally watch YouTube videos of other people dancing. The simulacra of experience, the potpourri of adventure. It almost smells like the real thing if you don't breathe too deeply. Here's what Kierkegaard knew that couples therapists won't tell you. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's habituation. It's the slow calcification of possibility into routine. The transformation of a human being into furniture, reliable, functional, and ignorable. You've become an exhibit in your own museum, a living display of what happens when you choose comfort over challenge, when you mistake being needed for being alive. The museum never closes. You walk its halls at 3 a.m., at noon, during sex, during arguments, during the increasingly rare moments of laughter. You know every exhibit by heart, could give the tour with your eyes closed. And maybe that's the point. Your eyes are closed, have been for so long that you've forgotten what it looks like when dreams aren't behind glass, but in your hands, messy and dangerous and absolutely terrifying in their potential. Here's what I need you to answer, but only in the silence of your own skull. If this museum burned down tonight, every compromise, every settled-for moment, every reasonable decision reduced to ash, what would you build in the ruins? Or have you been an exhibit so long you've forgotten you once had hands that could create rather than just point at what's already there? The careful cultivation of sterility, disguised as stability. I found a diary once in a used bookshop in Copenhagen, wedged between a cookbook and a guide to Norwegian fungi. The first entry read, Day 1247 of my marriage. I have become excellent at appearing interested. I should win an award. I have developed 43 different ways to say that's nice, with varying inflections to suggest engagement. She doesn't notice they're all the same. Or maybe she does. And we're both just pretending not to know we're pretending. The rest of the pages were blank. This is the garden where nothing grows. Not because the soil is poor, but because growth has been deemed too risky, too unpredictable. Better to have artificial flowers that never bloom but also never die. Better to lay down astroturf than risk the chaos of actual grass that might grow unevenly, might attract bugs, might require tending that doesn't fit the schedule. You've entered the realm of managed expectations, where surprise has been eliminated as a bug rather than recognized as a feature. She tends this garden with the methodology of a Swiss watchmaker. Tuesday is gym night, but not too late. Thursday is date night, the same 3 restaurants in rotation. Sunday is family day, her family usually. Sex is scheduled for Saturday mornings, after coffee but before brunch, with the mechanical precision of a German train timetable. Even your spontaneity is planned. We should do something crazy, she says, meaning a different brand of wine with dinner. There's an ancient Greek myth about King Midas that everyone gets wrong. They focus on the golden touch, but the real curse was that everything he transformed became unchangeable. Gold doesn't grow, doesn't evolve, doesn't surprise you. It just sits there, valuable and dead. You're living in Midas's garden, where every living thing has been turned into something permanent and lifeless. Your relationship has achieved its final form. No more evolution, just maintenance. A 2025 psychological study from Tokyo University coined the term emotional bonsai, the practice of keeping feelings small and manageable through constant pruning. Every time passion threatens to grow wild, it's carefully trimmed back. Every unexpected emotion is shaped into something decorative rather than authentic. You've become a master gardener of diminishment, creating the illusion of life while preventing actual growth. Listen, there's no sound in this garden. No birds, because unpredictability has been eliminated. No insects, because mess is intolerable. Even the wind has been regulated. A gentle, consistent breeze from a hidden fan, never strong enough to actually move anything. The silence isn't peaceful. It's the absence of life mistaking itself for tranquility. It's the sound of two people who've run out of things to say, but are too invested in the mortgage to admit it. She decorates this garden with inspirational quotes about growth while systematically preventing any. "Bloom where you're planted," reads the sign above soil she's replaced with concrete. "Life begins at the end of your comfort zone." Wish says the wall hanging in the living room you're not allowed to rearrange. The irony would be delicious if it weren't so poisonous. But here, lean closer. Here's the secret that would shatter this carefully maintained sterility. You're both prisoners pretending to be guards. She's as trapped as you are, tending a garden she doesn't want because she doesn't know how to want anything else. You've become accomplices in your mutual diminishment, each blaming the other for the walls you've built together. The garden where nothing grows isn't just your prison. It's your collaboration, your joint masterpiece of managing expectations down to zero. Schopenhauer wrote about the hedgehog's dilemma, creatures who need warmth, but whose closeness hurts each other. But you've solved it in the worst possible way, by becoming room temperature. Neither warm nor cold, neither approaching nor retreating, just existing side by side like furniture that occasionally speaks. The hedgehogs have filed down their quills and forgotten they once had the capacity to feel anything sharp enough to matter. The most grotesque flower in this garden is the one made of compromises. Each petal a thing you gave up, forming a bloom that looks perfect from a distance but smells like decay up close. "We never fight," you tell people, as if that's an achievement rather than an admission that nothing matters enough anymore to generate conflict. Peace at any price, and the price was everything that made you feel alive. So answer me this, in a voice so quiet even your thoughts can barely hear it. What would grow if you stopped watering the artificial flowers? What magnificent, chaotic, ungovernable life might erupt from soil you've been told is too dangerous to till? Where men discover that solitude isn't emptiness. It's the first honest conversation they've had in years. The candle flickers one last time, and in that dying light, I'll tell you the most dangerous truth of all. The one that makes women's magazines burn it as heresy and married men whisper it like a rosary. There is a terrible, magnificent freedom in letting go of the need to be chosen. Picture this. A man, 53 years old, sitting alone in an apartment that's finally his. No throw pillows chosen by committee. No art that matches the sofa. Just a leather chair positioned perfectly to catch the dying light. A glass of whiskey that doesn't require explanation. And the sound of his own breathing, which he realizes he hasn't truly heard in 20 years. The silence isn't lonely. It's liturgical, sacred. The kind of quiet that exists in ancient libraries and mountains at dawn. There's a Tibetan meditation called sky burial, where the dead are offered to vultures, returning to the cycle of life without preservation, without monuments. But what if you could perform this ritual while still alive? What if you could offer the false self, the performed self, the approved self, The domesticated self, to the vultures of truth and watch them pick it clean until only the essential remains? A 2024 study from the Sorbonne found something that should be carved into stone. Men who spent extended periods in voluntary solitude showed increased activity in brain regions associated with authentic self-expression and creative problem-solving. But here's the part that terrifies the coupled world. They also reported higher levels of life satisfaction than men in relationships who described themselves as happily partnered. Happiness, it seems, is not a team sport. The cathedral of singular twilight isn't built from loneliness. It's constructed from the radical recognition that you are complete unto yourself. Every prayer you thought required a witness can be whispered to your own soul. Every validation you sought from her eyes exists more purely in your own acknowledgement. The mirror doesn't lie when there's no one else's reflection superimposed over yours. Here's what Nietzsche understood in his Mountain Solitude, that men discover only after the divorce papers are signed. Authenticity requires no audience. The Übermensch isn't the man who conquers others, but the one who stops needing to be conquered by another's attention. He creates values rather than inheriting them, builds meaning rather than borrowing it, becomes who he is rather than who he's expected to be. I watched a documentary about monks who take vows of silence, and one detail haunted me. After the first year, they stop missing conversation. After the second, they discover that most of what they used to say was noise designed to prevent real thought. By the third year, they report hearing their authentic voice for the first time, not the voice that negotiates, pleases, performs, or persuades, but the one that simply is. This is the terrible secret hidden in every man's pocket, like a suicide note he'll never use but can't throw away. You don't actually need her. The hunger you feel isn't for partnership, but for permission. Permission to be yourself, which is the one thing no one else can grant. The loneliness you fear isn't being alone. It's being with someone and still feeling empty, because you've poured yourself into a shape that fits their container rather than maintaining your own form. The twilight in this cathedral is perpetual, not the darkness of night nor the brightness of day, but that liminal space where transformation happens. It's the light in which you can finally see that every compromise was a choice. Every cage had a door. Every chain was held by your own hand. The Gothic architects knew something when they built spaces that drew the eye upward. Transcendence requires distance from the ground where everyone else walks. But here's the grace note, the unexpected psalm in this dark hymnal. There's a strange, fierce joy in this solitude. Not the euphoria of new love or the comfort of companionship, but something harder and more real. The satisfaction of a man who's stopped apologizing for his existence, who eats dinner when hungry, not when scheduled, who reads philosophy at 3 a.m. because his mind is electric with questions, who has stopped translating himself into terms others can understand and started speaking his native tongue, even if he's the only one who comprehends it. The cathedral bells ring now, not to summon others, but to announce an arrival. Your own. You've come home to yourself after years of being a tourist in your own life. The pews are empty, which means every seat is yours. The sermon is silence, which means you can finally hear your own truth. And so I leave you with this question, carved into the stone of your skull, where no one else can read it. What would you become if you stopped trying to be someone worth loving and started being someone worth being? What magnificent monster of authenticity might emerge from the rubble of your performed self? Don't answer. Just listen to the echo of possibility.